Welcome back to Leadership Soundbites with RokoM Michele. So we are the second episode into the new year. And last week we had the opportunity to speak with Tanzibeh Kaur, who is a clinical director. And we got her perspective on the power of being coached. And so this week we're going to talk about the power of being a coach. And it isn't necessarily like Roko and I are both coaches, but it is coaching aspect as far as leadership is concerned. So some people refer to it as like a coach approach, right? Or leader as coach that you may have heard. And so it's the power of that. And one of the quotes that we came across, and I'm going to glance over and read it because I do not have it committed to memory, is leaders become great not because of their power, but because of their ability to empower others. And so when I think about a coach approach where it's respectful to people and that you're coming humbly to them as a servant leader, you're also engaging their hearts and their minds into what their perspective is. And I think it's powerful. And that is the empowering aspect of leadership. And I think you get engagement along with accountability, like Cy Wakeman talks about. She's like, engagement on its own leads to entitlement, but if you have engagement with accountability, you've got something. So, and I think that's what this coach approach does. What are your thoughts, Roko?
Yeah, I'm so glad you read that quote, because empowerment to me is the key, and that is the real value behind coaching, is being able to empower others to grow and to develop themselves. I think it was John Toussaint, we were at one of the Catalysis seminars, and he was talking about the role of a leader and showing up as a coach. And the role was not to solve the problem, but to help the person think through how to solve the problem, so that you don't become the expert in solving problems. You teach others, not teach, but help others think through how they can solve the problem. And that empowerment is so critical to developing folks and their critical mind and seeing possibilities and other ways of approaching things, so that they can take a new perspective if it's caused them to be stuck.
Yeah. So, and I know you kind of stumble a little bit on the word teach, but there's teaching in there too.
Yeah.
So when I think, it's so funny because you and I, when we went through the UC Davis program, I know we went at different times, but it's like the purest perspective on coaching, right? And coaching isn't this and it isn't this. So when I think about coaching or a coach approach, it's a mixed bag of tricks.
Yeah.
So, and I say that it's like coaching, it's going to be mentoring. There's going to be some teaching involved. There's going to be, because not everyone knows how to do the stuff. So it's not like you can just ask questions and they're just going to magically arrive at whatever. But I think one of the important things to think about for leaders is, even though you're going to come with all this stuff, right? You got knowledge and everything else. Don't be your first thing out of the gate with the tell. Show up understanding, what do people already know? What thoughts do they have about it? And to your point from last week, it's like if you show up with a coach approach and asking those questions, you allow people the time to reflect and hear their perspective. So a situation happens, you observe it, you go to the team member and you say, so what are your thoughts about how you feel that went? Right? What's one thing you did well? Where's an opportunity? And then as a coach approach, you can agree what's going on in the good thing, and you can add to it. Or if they've landed on an opportunity they want to work on, help them get through that.
Yeah.
But I think it's more respectful.
Yeah, it's more respectful. And when you were using that as an example, what was coming to mind too is that coach approach, again, we tell ourselves our own stories as to why the person behaved or reacted to the situation in the manner that they did, right? And if you show up in that coach approach and be curious about, what was the person thinking at the time that they made the decision or took the action? how did they come to that? Then you're learning more about them, but you're also teaching them to think critically too. Why did I act the way I did? Why did I make that decision? So that there's some, reflecting on themselves as well, so that there's growth on both sides. And that coach approach allows you to have that connection, as Tansy talked about, on a whole nother level.
Yeah, it's and I have to think one of the other quotes was about, basically that we're all on the same team. And this is something that I do with my team too, is we're all here. It's not like somebody's above and somebody's below, right? And if you think about, a coach approach allows you to play to your strengths. And so just because I may have the title of director or manager or leader, right, doesn't mean that I'm the answer man, that I have all the answers, because we are so much more than the role that we currently hold. And so your team members are so much more than the role that they currently hold. And as a leader, when you step in with a coach approach to asking questions, because that's my first out of the gate response to something, is come from the curious mind that we talked about before, right? And ask those questions, help to understand what's going on. And then you're going to be able to tap into the rest of the stuff that you're not even aware of.
Yeah. Yeah, so true. And, the other part of it, just to go back to the empowerment piece, Michele, is, do you remember the video, the captain video around turning the ship around, right? And it was
yes.
this naval captain who, when he was trained to be a captain, had to have all the answers, had to know everything, right? And he was a rate limiting step to how things moved forward. And what he realized is, if I developed my crew members, to think and act as if they were a captain,
mm-hmm.
we could be the best at what we do. And, that to me is taking that coach approach. When you're a leader, if you can develop your team members or the organization so that you, instead of just having 5% have this knowledge, have all the entire organization have this knowledge to be able to act and think like that, then you become this powerful, nimble, flexible, just intelligent organization that can move mountains.
Well, and I think about the high performing team, and when you were talking about the greatness video, right, of turn the ship around, it was a nuke sub. And you said all that stuff. The visual that came to mind was the 134 people that were thinking, acting, problem solving, everything, and they're a tidal wave. You can't even begin to compete with what they're able to do. Yeah. And so and that's the thing, is when you talk about empowering people, it doesn't mean that they're going to go run whatever into the ground, but give them the parameters, like the greatness video did, to make those decisions, because they're adults and they're thinking beings, and they're able to critically think after you develop and know those parameters, and they will step into hands down accountability, and their engagement will shoot through the roof. So I obviously passionate about this. Yes, hands down agree with this. So so to wrap this episode up, Roko, what do we want people to walk away with when we talk about leadership and a coach approach?
The power of being a coach is providing empowerment, empowering your team and empowering the organization to move mountains, to critically think, develop themselves, act, and be a leader themselves.
I'm going to add yes and right. And so the add to that is that from a leader perspective, you're not the only one solving the problems, and it's easier than if all roads lead to you. So it's an uncomfortable, because it's change,
right?
But the results, it's the gift that keeps on giving. So the power of coach and a coach approach. And thank you again. Thanks for listening. Thanks for participating. Thanks for your comments. If you have ideas for future episodes, let us know. Or if you want to be a guest on the show, reach out. Happy New Year. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
you.